Well, it's 10:28. This is To The Point with me, Patrick Christys, and Inaya Folariniman on GB News Live, on your TV, online and radio this morning. Happy Skint Day, everybody.
Yes, well, here to talk to us through the cost of living crisis and the squeeze more in depth, Jonathan Davies, economist and wealth advisor and author of Booms and Busts Report March 2022, which include analysis and financial advice. Thank you for joining us this morning, Jonathan. I mean, it's just unbelievable. I mean, what are ordinary people to do? This is really the big squeeze.
Well, firstly, they could stop voting for the people who have created this crisis over the last 10 years. It's been building. You know, you've just been talking a lot there about the eco-fascists who are stopping the oil tankers leaving the compound, supported by the politicians for years. My original hometown of Glasgow, the world leaders met there last year and decided that this was the way things were going to be. And Boris Johnson and his cronies were up in front of being the biggest eco-fascist of the lot of them. So, you know, while they have stopped oil and gas companies from finding oil and gas and producing it, while we haven't had any new nuclear facilities for donkeys, well, of course, we're eventually going to get to the position we're in, which is there isn't enough oil and gas or electricity from nuclear to provide for what's demanded.
Jonathan, I mean, you mentioned, you know, ordinary people need to stop voting for certain political parties that exacerbate this. And we do know that we have the local elections coming up, so this may well end up being a very big issue. But the reality is all of the main parties support this in various different ways. I mean, the Labour Party perhaps would have gone further when it comes to some of the environmental policies, lockdowns and other policies that have exacerbated this. And so in that sense, all of the parties have broadly the same policy programme when it comes to actually policies that exacerbate the cost of living crisis.
And there you have encapsulated a great problem that we all have. You said there's nothing earlier. You said that there's nothing that people can do. Effectively, to combat the inflation, there are three things that people have to do. Or one of three things. They have no options. Either, well, we should establish what the inflation rate is. It's clearly not the 6 or 7% per annum that the lying statisticians tell us that it is. Clearly, when home energy is going up 50% a year, then actual inflation in the cost of living, the cost of doing business, is more like 15% a year. That's the reality. So, one, you either raise your net income by 15% a year to combat the challenge of inflation. Well, of course, with higher direct taxes happening from today and from the 6th of April, that's increasingly unlikely. And it's not very easy anyway for people to get big increases in their income. Secondly, you have to cut your spending. Well, that, of course, means that your standard of living falls, and probably, unfortunately, dramatically. Thirdly, and this is where people like me come in, you have to increase your wealth. And therefore, that means inside of your pensions and your ISAs, and so on, you have to be investing in the right way to make a shed load of money. As far as I'm concerned, that's the only way people can actually do anything.
Yes, well, I would quite like to ask you if I could maybe employ your services after this show, because I could certainly do with a bit of a boost, so maybe we'll have a little chat after that. But is there not another option? Potentially people just won't pay en masse.
Okay. And do you know what? That is perfectly sensible, because I can remember to around about, what was it, the year 2000 or so, when you had the fuel strike. People were not paying for at that time, I think it had gone up to £1.30 a litre. And of course, Gordon Brown's government radically altered its taxation on fuel. So yes, I would entirely support that. Peaceful demonstration.
Yeah.
And that would certainly get the politicians taking the right action as opposed to the pretend actions which they are taking.
Jonathan, thank you very, very much. Absolute pleasure, that. Really enjoyed it. Jonathan Davies, economist and wealth advisor, soon to be employed by myself by the sounds of things. Lack of wealth advisor, I could call him there potentially.
Yes.
And, of course, an author as well.
Yes, we must say that I'm sure the government would strongly push back against many of these criticisms and say some of the things they may say is that they're doing everything they can and that this is a global crisis that they are just a victim of as well.
They may well indeed say that, yes.